Are you looking for a cute plushie to crochet for the year of the snake, or just want to make something fast and simple? Well, here's how to crochet this little snake. It's pretty quick to make and can be finished in less than an hour if you're more experienced, or if you're a beginner, I do go over all the skills and stitches to make it as beginner friendly as possible. But please feel free to speed up or slow down the video to your skill level. If you don't need the tutorial, you can also find the link to the free written pattern in the description. So in this video, I'll be using US crochet terms, and I'll be using a 6mm hook in size 6 super bulky yarn in 3 colors. You need one color for the body. I'm using pink this time, but you can use green or whatever color you want to use for your snake. You also need one for the tongue and also one for the belly stripes. I'm also using a size 4 worsted weight yarn in black just for the nose detailing. But you can also use a different type of yarn or hook size. Just make sure that the hook size works well with the yarn. For crochet plushies, you do want to use a smaller hook than what is usually on the yarn label for less holes in your project. You also need some stuffing, scissors, a yarn needle, and I'm using 60mm safety eyes, but you can replace these with a similar eye size or use something else like buttons, felt, or even just embroider on the eyes with yarn. If you're just starting out, I also definitely recommend a stitch marker, but if you don't have one, you can use something else that can attach and detach from the stitch like a bobby pin, or even just use a different color strand of yarn. Now let's get started. Let's start by making the base. The base is going to make up the head and the body of the snake, so grab the yarn color that you want to use as the main color of your snake. I'll be using pink yarn because I want to make a pink snake this time, but if you want to make the green snake, then use green yarn or use whatever color that you want to use. And then we're going to start by making the magic circle. If you don't know how to do that, start by pinching the yarn between the thumb and the pointer finger, and then wrap the yarn around the pointer and the middle finger, forming an X. Hold that in place with the ring finger. And then now we're going to grab our hook, have it facing upwards, and then we're going to insert it underneath that X, and then grab that lower strand of yarn on top of the middle finger and pull it underneath the X, exiting out the top. Then rotate the hook and then go over that X again, this time in between those 2 strands of yarn on the middle finger, and then pull that lower strand of yarn for the loop on the hook. And that is how you make a magic circle. If you need more help with this, I do have a slower tutorial that I will link in the description. Now let's make 8 single crochets inside of the magic circle. So insert the hook into the circle, making sure that you're going underneath both strands of yarn, and then grab the yarn and pull it through the circle. Now you have 2 loops on the hook, and then grab the yarn again and pull it for the 2 loops on the hook. That's how you make a single crochet inside of the magic circle. So let's repeat this 7 more times for 8 single crochets total. So again, grab the yarn and pull it through the circle, and then grab the yarn again and pull it for the 2 loops on the hook. That's 2. Again, insert the hook into the circle, grab the yarn and pull it through, and then grab the yarn again and pull it for the 2 loops on the hook. That's our 3rd single crochet. So let's repeat this again for a 4th single crochet. And then again, repeating the same thing to make a 5th single crochet, grabbing the yarn, pulling it through, and then for the 2 loops on the hook. 3 more to go. That's our 6th one, and I'm going to speed up a little bit here to finish off the 7th and 8th single crochet, but it's made in the same way. And once you have all 8 single crochets in your magic circle, you can grab that yarn tail and pull on it to tighten up the circle. And we are done with round 1. So before we move on to round 2, let's grab a stitch marker and place it into the last stitch that we just made to mark the end of the round. If you don't know what a stitch looks like, it looks like 2 strands of yarn running across the top going into a V shape. We want to place our stitch marker into the last stitch that we made, so it's the one that's attached to the loop on the hook. Now we can go on to round 2. So for round 2, we're making 8 increases for a total of 16 stitches. So skip that knob in the front and go into that first stitch. Remember, a stitch looks like 2 strands of yarn running across the top going into a V shape. We're going to treat the stitch like a magic circle. So insert the hook into the stitch, and we're going to make a single crochet just like we did in the magic circle. So grab the yarn and pull it through the stitch, and then grab the yarn again and pull it for the 2 loops on the hook. But since we're making an increase, we're going into that same exact stitch again to make a 2nd single crochet. An increase is just 2 single crochets inside of the same stitch, so grab the yarn and pull it for the stitch, and then for the 2 loops on the hook to make a 2nd single crochet inside of that same stitch. Now we're going to move on to the 2nd stitch, so the next stitch after that. So insert your hook into that 2nd stitch, and again we're making 2 single crochets inside of the 2nd stitch to make an increase. So again, insert your hook into that same exact spot that you made the last single crochet, And we're going to make a second single crochet to make an increase in the second stitch as well. And we are doing this with every single stitch around, so 2 single crochets in each stitch. So now going to that third stitch, we're going to make our first single crochet. And then again in that third stitch, we're making a second single crochet to make an increase. Same thing in the fourth stitch, we're going to insert a hook into it and make 2 single crochets inside of that stitch to make an increase. So there's our first one. And again, in that fourth stitch, we're going to make a second single crochet to make an increase. Same thing again in the fifth stitch, we're making 2 single crochets to make an increase. And now we're moving on to the sixth stitch, and again, we're making 2 single crochets to make an increase. Just 2 more increases and we're done. So going into the 7th stitch, let's make 2 single crochets to make an increase. And finally, we're on that last stitch with the stitch marker. So let's remove the stitch marker and make our final increase. So go into that last stitch and make 2 single crochets again to make an increase. So now that we're done with round 2, we should have 16 stitches total, so let's count them, starting from that stitch attached to the loop on our hook. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. Now let's move on to round 3. So don't forget to place your stitch marker into the last stitch that we just made to mark the end of the round. And for round 3, we're making 1 single crochet and an increase, and repeat this 8 times for a total of 24 stitches. So go into that first stitch, and we're just going to make 1 single crochet this time inside of this stitch. So grab the yarn and pull it through the stitch, and then grab the yarn again and pull it through the 2 loops on the hook. That's it for the first stitch. So now let's go into the second stitch, and we're going to make an increase this time in this second stitch. So again, remember, an increase is 2 single crochets inside of the same stitch. So go into that second stitch and grab the yarn and pull it through the stitch, and grab the yarn again and pull it for the 2 loops on the hook, and then go back into that same exact second stitch and repeat this again to make a second single crochet to make that increase. Now we're just going to repeat this pattern all the way around, so 1 single crochet in this next stitch or our third stitch, grab the yarn and pull it through, and then grab the yarn again and pull it for the 2 loops on the hook. And now we're moving on to the next stitch, and this time we're making an increase, so we're making 2 single crochets inside of this next stitch. So again, we're repeating this pattern, so going into this next stitch, we're making only 1 single crochet inside of it. And then moving to the stitch after that, we're making 2 single crochets to make an increase. Now in this next stitch, we're making 1 single crochet. And then in the stitch after that, we're making 2 single crochets to make an increase. Again, 1 single crochet in the next stitch. And then we're making 2 single crochets in the stitch after that to make an increase. And we're almost done, so again in the next stitch we're just making 1 single crochet, and then in the stitch after that we're making 2 single crochets to make an increase. So there's our first single crochet, and then again in the same stitch just make a second one, and then again we're making 1 single crochet in the stitch after that, and then we're making 2 single crochets in the stitch afterwards to make an increase. And we are almost on our last set. So here we go. On our last set, we're making 1 single crochet in the second to last stitch. And then let's remove that stitch marker. And then in that last stitch that was marked by the stitch marker, we're making 2 single crochets to make our final increase in this round. We should now have 24 stitches total, so let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. We also have 24 stitches too, then we can move on to round 4. So let's place our stitch marker into that last stitch that we just made, and then for round 4 we're just making 24 single crochets for 24 stitches total. So that means just making 1 single crochet in each stitch. So go into that first stitch and we're just going to make 1 single crochet. So remember, grab the yarn and pull it through the stitch, and grab the yarn again and pull it for the 2 loops on the hook. And now we're going to go straight into the next stitch, the second stitch, and again we're just making one single crochet inside of this stitch. Same thing in the third stitch, we're just making one single crochet. Same thing in the fourth stitch, we're just making one single crochet. Same thing in the fifth stitch, we're just making one single crochet. Same thing in the sixth stitch, we're just making one single crochet, just one single crochet in each stitch. So same thing in the seventh stitch, and so on. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, and finally let's remove that stitch marker, and we're making our final single crochet, our 24th single crochet of this round in that stitch. And you should still have 24 stitches total. So for rounds 5 and 6, again, we're just repeating the same exact thing that we just did in round 4. So for the next 2 rounds, we're again just making one single crochet in each stitch all the way around for a total of 24 single crochets. So I'll go ahead and let you do these next 2 rounds by yourself. If you like me working with you, then go ahead and rewind to the beginning of round 4 and repeat that 2 more times. Otherwise, I'll see you after these 2 rounds. Once you're done with round 6, this is what your piece should look like. You should have 6 rounds total, so let's count them just to make sure that we're in the same place. Starting from that magic circle, that's our round 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you also have 6 rounds too, then we can move on to round 7. For round 7, we're making 9 single crochets, 6 increases, and 9 single crochets for a total of 30 stitches. So going into that first stitch, make 1 single crochet. Same thing in the second stitch, just 1 single crochet. Same thing in the third stitch, just 1 single crochet. And just 1 single crochet in each stitch for the first 9 stitches. So there's the fourth one. There's 1 single crochet in the fifth stitch. 1 single crochet in the sixth stitch. 1 single crochet in the seventh stitch. 1 single crochet in the 8th stitch, and finally 1 single crochet in the 9th stitch. Now we're going to make 6 increases. So going into that first stitch, we're making 2 single crochets instead of this stitch to make an increase. Same thing in the next stitch, we're also making 2 single crochets to make an increase. Again, in the third stitch, we're also making 2 single crochets to make an increase. 3 more increases to go. So in the fourth stitch, again, we're making 2 single crochets to make an increase. And then in that fifth stitch, we're making our 5th increase by making 2 single crochets instead of that stitch. And finally, in that 6th stitch, we're making 2 single crochets to make an increase. Now we're just going to finish off the round by making 9 single crochets, so 1 single crochet in each stitch. So going into that next stitch, just make 1 single crochet. Same thing in the stitch after that, just 1 single crochet. Same thing in the stitch after that, just 1 single crochet, that's 3. And so on, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and our 9 single crochet should land on the one with a stitch marker. Now we should have 30 stitches total, so let's count them, starting from the last stitch that we made. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Before we move on to round 8, place your stitch marker into the last stitch that we just made to mark the end of the round. And for round 8, we're making 1 single crochet in each stitch all the way around for a total of 30 stitches. This is very similar to what we did in rounds 4 to 6, but instead of 24 single crochets total, it's 30 single crochets. So I'll only do part of the round with you. So going to that first stitch, we're just making 1 single crochet. Same thing in the second stitch, we're just making 1 single crochet. Same thing in the third stitch, we're just making 1 single crochet. Same thing in the fourth stitch, we're just making 1 single crochet. Same thing in the fifth stitch, we're making 1 single crochet, and so on. Just 1 single crochet in every single stitch going all the way around, and you should end up with 30 single crochets total again. So go ahead and finish the rest of this round, just 1 single crochet in each stitch, and I'll meet you when you're done. Once you're done with round 8, this is what your piece should look like. You should again have 30 single crochets total, so make sure that you're counting your stitches after each round just to make sure that you have the right amount of stitches. And then for round 9, we're making 9 single crochets, 6 decreases, 9 single crochets for a total of 24 stitches. So for the next 9 stitches, we're just making 1 single crochet in each stitch. Starting with this first stitch, just 1 single crochet. Same thing in the second stitch, 1 single crochet. Same thing in the third stitch, 1 single crochet. Same thing in the fourth stitch, 1 single crochet. Same thing in the fifth stitch, 1 single crochet. Same thing in the sixth stitch, 1 single crochet, and so on. 7, 8, and 9. And now we're going to make 6 decreases. A decrease is the opposite of an increase. So instead of adding a stitch, you're taking away one. And I like to do the invisible decrease method, so that's what I'm going to teach you. So you know how our stitches have 2 strands of yarn running across the top? Those are our 2 loops, the back loop and the front loop. So instead of going under both loops or both strands of yarn on the stitch, we're only going through the front loop and ignoring the loop on the back. And we're also going for the front loop of the next stitch as well. So when we're making our invisible decrease, we're going for the front loops of the next 2 stitches. Remember, we're ignoring the loops on the back, and then we're going to grab the yarn and pull it for those 2 front loops or the first 2 loops on the hook. Then we're going to grab the yarn again and pull it for the final 2 loops on the hook. And that's how you make an invisible decrease. We need to make 5 more of these, so to make our second invisible decrease, we're going for the front loop of the next stitch and also the front loop of the stitch after that. Grab the yarn and pull it for those 2 front loops, and then grab the yarn again and pull it for the 2 loops on the hook. Congratulations, you finished your second invisible decrease. Let's repeat this again for a third time, going for the front loops of the next 2 stitches, grab the yarn and pull it through, and then for the 2 loops on the hook. And now let's repeat this 3 more times, going for the front loops of the next 2 stitches, pull the yarn for those 2 front loops, and then for the 2 loops on the hook. And then we're just going to repeat this 2 more times to make our last 2 invisible decreases. Now all we have to do to finish off the round is make 9 single crochets, so 1 single crochet in each stitch for the last 9 stitches. You should now have 24 stitches total, so let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. For round 10, we're making 12 decreases for a total of 12 stitches, so it's the same thing that we did in round 9, the previous round, when we made those 6 decreases down here, but this time for the entire round. And I'm going to be doing the invisible decrease again because I think it looks better with plushies. So going for the front loops of the first 2 stitches, grab the yarn and pull it through, and then grab the yarn again and pull it for the 2 loops on the hook. Same thing again, we're going for the front loops of the next 2 stitches, grab the yarn, pull it through those 2 front loops, and then pull the yarn for the 2 loops on the hook. Repeat this again for a third decrease, going for the front loops of the next 2 stitches, grab the yarn, pull it through those 2 front loops, and then for the 2 loops on the hook. Let's do one more together, going for the front loops of the next 2 stitches, grab the yarn and pull it for those 2 front loops, and then for the 2 loops on the hook. And just keep repeating this until you reach the end of the round, and you should end up with 12 decreases and 12 stitches total. So go ahead and do that, and I'll see you when you're finished. So once you're done with round 10, this is what your piece should look like. You should have 12 stitches left, so make sure that you're counting them. And now we're going to take a little break from crocheting to add the eyes and some stuffing. I like to add some stuffing first to just shape out the head a little bit better so I can figure out where to place the eyes. But if you can tell where you want to place the eyes without adding stuffing, then you don't need to add the stuffing just yet. The part of the head where we want to place the eyes is this part that sticks out. This is where we did the increases and decreases, and that is the snout of our snake. And then grab your eyes, and we're going to place them between rounds 5 and 6 around 4 stitches apart. So starting from that magic circle, that's our round 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to place the eyes between these 2 rounds. We'll place the first eye around 2 stitches away from the center, and then count 4 stitches over, 1, 2, 3, 4, to place the second eye. Make sure that you double check that the eyes are where you want them to be by looking at the snake's snout along with the eyes. And then if you're using safety eyes like me, take out some of the stuffing so you can add the backings onto the back of the eyes. Once the eyes are attached, go ahead and add stuffing to fill up the head. Make sure to press the stuffing into the back of the piece, and a tip that I have for stuffing is just to use smaller chunks so it's easier to shape it to the shape of your plushie, and then that way you won't overstuff it on accident. Now we can move on to round 11, and we're making 5 single crochets and an increase, and repeat this 2 times for a total of 14 stitches. So going to that first stitch, just make 1 single crochet. Same thing in the second stitch, we're just making 1 single crochet. Same thing in the third stitch, 1 single crochet. Same thing in the fourth stitch, 1 single crochet. Same thing in the fifth stitch, 1 single crochet. And then in that sixth stitch, we're making 2 single crochets to make an increase. So there's our first one, and then back into that same exact stitch, we're making a second single crochet for an increase. And then we're just going to repeat this pattern one more time to finish off the round. So again, in the next stitch, 1 single crochet, 1 single crochet in the stitch after that, 1 single crochet in the next stitch, 1 single crochet in the stitch after that, and then same thing in the next stitch, 1 single crochet, and finally let's remove that stitch marker, and we're making 2 single crochets in this last stitch to make our final increase of this round. Now you should have 14 single crochets total, so make sure that you're counting them just to make sure that you have the right number of stitches. If you do have 14 single crochets, then we can move on to round 12. Don't forget to place your stitch marker into that last stitch that we just made. And for round 12, we're making 6 single crochets and increase, and repeat this 2 times for a total of 16 stitches. So 1 single crochet in that first stitch, 1 single crochet in that second stitch, 1 single crochet in that third stitch, 1 single crochet in that fourth stitch, 1 single crochet in that fifth stitch, 1 single crochet in that sixth stitch, and then in that seventh stitch we're making 2 single crochets inside of it to make an increase. And then we're just repeating the same pattern again, 6 single crochets and an increase to finish off the round. So just 1 single crochet in each stitch until you reach the last stitch with the stitch marker, where you're going to make 2 single crochets inside of it for an increase. And once you're finished with the round, you should have 16 stitches total, so make sure that you're counting them before we move on to the next round. For round 13, we're making 7 single crochets and an increase, and repeat this 2 times for a total of 18 stitches. So go into that first stitch and make 1 single crochet. Same thing in the second stitch, 1 single crochet. Same thing in the third stitch, 1 single crochet. Same thing in the fourth stitch, 1 single crochet. Same thing in the fifth stitch, 1 single crochet. Same thing in the sixth stitch, 1 single crochet. Same thing in the seventh stitch, 1 single crochet. And then we're making an increase, so go into that eighth stitch and make 2 single crochets. And then we're just repeating this pattern again to finish off the rest of the round. So 1 single crochet in the next 7 stitches, and then in that final stitch where that stitch marker is, we're making 2 single crochets to make that final increase of this round. Once you're done with this round, you should have 18 stitches total, so make sure that you're counting them before going on to round 14. Don't forget to place your stitch marker into the last stitch that you made, and for round 14 we're making 8 single crochets and an increase, and repeat this 2 times for a total of 20 stitches. So just like before, we're going into that first stitch and making 1 single crochet, and same thing in the second stitch, 1 single crochet, same thing in the third stitch, 1 single crochet, same thing in the fourth stitch, 1 single crochet, same thing in the fifth stitch, 1 single crochet, same thing in the sixth stitch, 1 single crochet, same thing in the seventh stitch, 1 single crochet, same thing in the eighth stitch, 1 single crochet, and then we're going to make 2 single crochets in that ninth stitch to make an increase. There's our first one, and then again into that same stitch, make a second single crochet for that increase. And repeat this pattern again, just 1 single crochet in the next 8 stitches, and then we're making 2 single crochets in that stitch with a stitch marker to make that final increase of this round. Once you're done with round 14, you should have 20 stitches total, so make sure that you're counting your stitches, and if you have 20 stitches, then we can move on to round 15. So like always, don't forget to place that stitch marker in the last stitch that we just made, and for rounds 15 to 17, we're making 20 single crochets for 20 stitches total. So that means for the next 3 rounds, you're making 1 single crochet in each stitch all the way around. So I'll start off round 15 with you just in case you need a reminder, and then I'll let you do the rest by yourself. So going into that first stitch, we're making 1 single crochet, and then we're going straight into the second stitch, and we're also making 1 single crochet, and then to the third stitch, we're also making 1 single crochet, and then the fourth stitch, we're also making 1 single crochet, and so on. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then just keep repeating this for the rest of the round, just 1 single crochet in each stitch, and you should end up with 20 single crochets again, with the 20th one landing on the one with the stitch marker. And once you're done with round 15, it should look like this, and then just repeat this again 2 more times for round 16 and 17. So again, just 20 single crochets, so 1 single crochet in each stitch for 2 more rounds. So go ahead and finish that, and I'll meet you when you're done. Once you're done with round 16 and 17, this is what your piece should look like. So let's just make sure that we're in the same place and count our rounds, starting from that magic circle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17. If you have all 17 rounds, then we can move on to round 18. And for round 18, we're making 8 single crochets and a decrease, and repeat this 2 times for a total of 18 stitches. So going to that first stitch, and we're going to make 1 single crochet in it, and then same thing in the second stitch, just 1 single crochet inside of it, same thing in the third stitch, 1 single crochet, and so on. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then we're going to make our decrease or invisible decrease like I'm doing, going for the front loops only the next 2 stitches. Grab the yarn and pull for those 2 front loops, and then for the 2 loops on the hook. And then we're just going to repeat this again, 1 single crochet in the next stitch, 1 single crochet in the second stitch, 1 single crochet in that third stitch, 1 single crochet in that fourth stitch, 1 single crochet in the fifth stitch, 1 single crochet in the sixth stitch, 1 single crochet in that seventh stitch, 1 single crochet in that 8th stitch, and now we're down to our last 2 stitches. So let's remove that stitch marker, and we're going for the front loops of these 2 stitches, and then we're going to grab the yarn, pull it through, and then for the 2 loops on the hook. And we should now have 18 stitches total. So don't forget to count them just to make sure that you have the correct amount of stitches before we move on to the next part. And spoiler alert, we're almost done with the head and the body. Now let's take a quick break from crocheting and add some stuffing. We have 2 more rounds to go to finish off the body, and we're going to add stuffing as we go as well. And now let's finish our last 2 rounds. So for round 19, we're making a single crochet and then a decrease, and repeat this 6 times for a total of 12 stitches. So going to the first stitch, we're just going to make 1 single crochet, And then we're making a decrease or invisible decrease like I like to do by going for the front loops of the next 2 stitches, grab the yarn, pull it through, and then for the 2 loops on the hook, and then repeat again, 1 single crochet in the next stitch, and then again we're going for the front loops of the next 2 stitches, grab the yarn and pull it for those 2 front loops, and then for the 2 loops on the hook, and then back to 1 single crochet in the next stitch. And then again, we're making that invisible decrease or regular decrease if you prefer that and you know how to do that. And then again, we're making 1 single crochet in the stitch after that, and then back to our decrease. Same thing again, 1 single crochet in the next stitch, and then back to the decrease. Almost done with this round, 1 single crochet in the next stitch, and then finally we're on our last 2 stitches, so let's make a decrease by going for those front loops only of the next 2 stitches, pull the yarn through, and then for the 2 loops on the hook, and you should not have 12 stitches total, so make sure that you're counting them before moving on to round 20. Round 20, we're making 6 decreases for 6 stitches total, and this will be the last round for our body, so we're almost done. Don't forget to add some extra stuffing right now, since it will get harder to add stuffing after we finish round 20. And then we're just making decreases all the way around, so I'm making invisible decreases again, so going for the front loops of the next 2 stitches, grabbing the yarn, pulling it through, and then for the 2 loops on the hook, and then repeating this again to make a second decrease. And then again, repeating this again, making a 3rd decrease. Same thing again after this, making a 4th decrease. And then now let's make our 5th decrease. And finally, we're on our last 2 stitches, so you can remove that stitch marker and going for the front loops only of those last 2 stitches. Grab the yarn and pull it through, and then for the 2 loops on the hook, and we are done with round 20. So we should only have 6 stitches left. So now we can fasten off, so grab the yarn and pull it for the loop on the hook. Make sure to leave a good amount of extra yarn and then cut off that yarn and pull the yarn for the loop. Now add any last stuffing that you want to add. Then grab a needle so we can sew the plushie closed. Thread the yarn that we had left over when we fastened off through the needle, and then we're going to sew through each of the stitches around the opening. I find that going for the front loops of each of the stitches can make it a little bit neater, so go through that first stitch. And then insert the needle into the second stitch, going out this time, and then back into the third stitch, going in, and then back out the fourth stitch, going out, and then back in for the 5th stitch, going in. And I just realized while looking at this video that I forgot to go through the 6th stitch, but go for the 6th stitch as well, and then pull tight to close up that opening. Now you can choose to do what a lot of crocheters do by inserting the needle inside of the plushie and pulling it through to a different side to hide that yarn tail inside of the plushie. I sometimes like to do these 2 extra steps just for my peace of mind, but you don't have to do them. And basically I just pull the yarn through a nearby spot and leave some slack, and then thread the needle through that slack and pull tight. And then I like to add some extra knots just to make it feel a little bit more secure to me. But if you don't have a lot of extra yarn, I would suggest not doing this just because we do need a good amount of yarn to pull through the plushie as well. And then the last step, which you can totally just skip to and not do those 2 extra steps, is just pushing the needle through the plushie to the other side and pulling that yarn through. If you did do the extra step, make sure that you're pulling that knot through as well. And then if you do have enough extra yarn at this point, you can insert that needle through the same spot that the yarn is exiting from and pull it through a different side as well, just to make sure that the yarn gets super caught up inside of the stuffing and is more secure. Finally, when you're ready to cut off that yarn, just press down the plushie, cut off that yarn, and then just puff it up, and it should hide that end fully inside. Yay, we are finished with the base of the snake. Now let's make the tail, so grab the same color that you were using for the body, and again we're going to start with the magic circle. So as a reminder, pinch the yarn between the thumb and the pointer finger and wrap the yarn around the pointer and the middle finger, forming an X. Then grab your hook, go underneath that X and grab that lower strand of yarn and pull it underneath the X, exiting out the top. Rotate the hook and grab that lower strand of yarn again and pull it through the loop on the hook. I'm just tightening it a little bit right now, but don't tighten it up all the way yet because we still need to make 4 single crochets inside of the magic circle. So just like before, grab the yarn, pull it for the circle, and then for the 2 loops on the hook to make that first single crochet, then back into the circle and repeat this a second time for a second one, and then back in again for a third one, and finally we're going to make our fourth single crochet inside of that circle, and that's all we're doing for the tail. And then we're going to grab on that strand of yarn to tighten it up. Now don't forget to place your stitch marker into the last stitch that we just made, and for round 2 we're making 1 single crochet and then an increase, and repeat this 2 times for a total of 6 stitches. So remember to skip that knob in the front and go into that first stitch, and we're just making 1 single crochet inside of this stitch. So grab the yarn, pull it through, and then for the 2 loops on the hook. And now we're going to the second stitch and we're making 2 single crochets inside of it to make an increase. Now repeat this again, 1 single crochet inside of the next stitch, and now we're on the one with the stitch marker, our last stitch of this round, and we're going to make 2 single crochets inside of it to make an increase. We should now have 6 stitches total, so make sure that you're counting them. And then if your piece is turning inside out like mine is, don't forget to flip it right side around. That strand of yarn that we had at the very beginning should be on the inside, and we should be working in this clockwise direction now. Don't forget to place your slip stitch back into the last stitch that we just made, and for round 3 we're making 2 single crochets and an increase, and repeat this 2 times for a total of 8 stitches. So inside of that first stitch we're just making 1 single crochet, same thing in the second stitch, just 1 single crochet, and then in that third stitch we're making 2 single crochets to make that increase. And then repeat this one more time, 1 single crochet in the next stitch, 1 single crochet in the stitch after that, and then remove that stitch marker so we can work on that last stitch, and we're making 2 single crochets inside of that last stitch to make our final increase of this round. You should now have 8 stitches total, so make sure that you're counting them before moving on to round 4. For round 4, we're making 3 single crochets and an increase, and repeating this 2 times for a total of 10 stitches. So going into that first stitch, we're making 1 single crochet inside of it again, and then same thing in the second stitch, also 1 single crochet, same thing in the third stitch, 1 single crochet, and then in that fourth stitch, we're making 2 single crochets to make an increase. Repeat this again, 1 single crochet inside of the next stitch, 1 single crochet inside of the stitch after that, 1 single crochet inside of the third stitch, and then let's remove that stitch marker and make 2 single crochets inside of this last stitch to make an increase. You should now have 10 stitches total, so like always, make sure that you're counting them, and then we can move on to round 5. For round 5, we're making 4 single crochets and then an increase, and repeat this 2 times for a total of 12 stitches. So going into that first stitch, we're just making 1 single crochet. Again in the second stitch, just 1 single crochet. Again in the third stitch, make 1 single crochet. And also in the fourth stitch, just make 1 single crochet. And then in that fifth stitch, we're making 2 single crochets to make an increase. And then we're just repeating this pattern again, 1 single crochet in that next stitch, 1 single crochet in that stitch after that, 1 single crochet in the next stitch, 1 single crochet again in the stitch after that, and then we're making 2 single crochets inside of this last stitch to make an increase. You should now have 12 stitches total, so make sure that you're counting them, and if you have those 12 stitches, then we can move on to the next round. So round 6 is going to be a little bit different. This time we're doing 5 slip stitches and 7 half double crochets for a total of 12 stitches. This is going to start giving the tail a natural curl. So if you don't know how to do a slip stitch, we're going to start the same way as a single crochet. Insert the hook into that first stitch and grab the yarn and pull it through that stitch. So unlike the single crochet, we're not going to grab the yarn again. Instead, we're just going to pull this yarn directly through the loop on the hook. So we're basically just skipping one step of the single crochet to make a slip stitch. So again, same thing in the second stitch, grab the yarn, pull it through the stitch, and then pull it directly through the loop on the hook. Let's repeat this 3 more times. So go into the next stitch, grab the yarn, and pull it directly through the loop on the hook. And then same thing again, in the next stitch, grab the yarn, pull it through the stitch, and then directly through the loop on the hook. And finally, let's do our last slip stitch of this round, grab the yarn, pull it through that stitch, and then directly through the loop on the hook. Now we're going to make 7 half double crochets. So to do that, start by yarning over. So wrap the yarn over the hook, and then we're going to insert the hook inside of that next stitch, and then we're going to grab the yarn and pull it through that stitch, and we should now have 3 loops on the hook. And then we're going to grab the yarn and pull it through all 3 loops on the hook. Now we're going to repeat this again, so yarn over by wrapping the yarn around the hook and go into the next stitch, grab the yarn, pull it through that stitch, and then grab the yarn again and pull it for the 3 loops on the hook. So just keep repeating this for each of the stitches until we finish off the round. We should be making 5 more, 1 in each stitch. So there's our third half double crochet, and then again wrap the yarn around the hook, go into the stitch, grab the yarn, pull it through, and then grab the yarn and pull it for the 3 loops on the hook. Almost done. Repeat this again in the next stitch. And then just 2 more, wrap the yarn around the hook, go into that stitch, pull it through, and then for the 2 loops on the hook. And finally, let's remove that stitch marker, and we're going to make our last half double crochet of this round inside of that stitch. So you should still have 12 stitches. We just use different stitches this time, so make sure that you're counting them. And then for rounds 7 through 12, so for the next 6 rounds, we're just repeating the exact same thing that we did in round 6. So 5 slip stitches and 7 half double crochets for each round. If you like me working with you, then go ahead and rewind to the beginning of round 6 and repeat this 6 times. Otherwise, I'll see you when you're finished with the next 6 rounds. Once you're done with all 12 rounds, we're going to fasten off, so grab the yarn and pull it for the loop on the hook, and you want to leave quite a bit of extra yarn for sewing the tail onto the body later. We definitely want much more than we left for the body, so cut that yarn and then pull that yarn all the way through. If you're not too sure how much yarn to leave, then I would say at least 2 feet. It's better to have more than less. And then add stuffing inside of the tail. And we are finished with the tail. We're almost done. We just have to crochet the tongue before we assemble everything together. So grab the color that you want to use for the tongue. I'm using red. And we're going to start with a slip knot this time. So to make a slip knot, start by crossing the yarn over to make this oval shape. Then we're going to hold the end of the yarn in place with one hand and then use the other hand to flip the oval over. We want it to be on top of the working yarn. And then we're going to grab that yarn through the oval and pull it through the oval. And then just pull tight on both ends. And that's how you make a slip knot. Now grab your hook and place it for the circle, and then we're just going to pull on the working yarn to tighten up the circle onto the hook. Now we're going to chain 4, so if you don't know how to do a chain, just start by yarning over, so wrapping the yarn around the hook and then pulling it through the loop on the hook. And that's it for making a chain. So let's repeat this 3 more times to make 4. So grab the yarn again and pull it through the loop on the hook. And let's repeat this again, pull it through the loop on the hook, and 1 more time for a 4th chain. Now we're going to turn and work in the opposite direction, and in the 2nd chain from the hook, we're going to make a slip stitch. So we're going to skip this last chain that we made. Instead, we're going to go into the 2nd chain down. So insert your hook inside of that chain, grab the yarn and pull it through that chain, and then directly for the loop on the hook. Now we're going to chain 2, so just like before, grab the yarn and yarn over or wrap it around your hook and pull it for the loop on the hook, and repeat this a 2nd time for a 2nd chain. And just like before, we're going to turn and work in the opposite direction and go for the 2nd chain from the hook. So not the chain directly behind the loop on the hook, but the one afterwards. And again, we're going to go inside that chain and we're going to make a slip stitch. So grab the yarn and pull it through that chain and then directly for the loop on the hook. And then finally, to finish off the tongue, we're just going to work in these 2 chains that we made at the very beginning. And we're just going to make 2 slip stitches, 1 in each chain. So go into that closer chain and we're going to grab the yarn and pull it through that chain and then for the loop on the hook. And then finally, into that very last chain at the end, we're going to make our final slip stitch. So grab the yarn and pull it for the chain and then for the loop on the hook. Now we just need to fasten off, so grab the yarn and pull it through the loop on the hook, and then we want to leave a little bit of yarn for sewing the tongue onto the face of the snake later, so cut that yarn off and then pull that yarn all the way through. And now we are finished with the tongue. The last thing that we have to do is put everything together and add the details. So grab your needle and let's start with the tail. We're going to sew the tail onto the back of the snake onto rounds 16 through 18. So let's count the rounds starting from the very top where that magic circle is. That's our round 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So onto rounds 16, 17, and 18 is where we're going to place the tail. So line up the top of the tail to the top of round 16. If you have an extra needle or some pins, you can use that to hold the bottom of the tail in place. And then thread the yarn that we left over for sewing through the needle, and we're going to start sewing the tail on. Start by sewing along the top around 16 of the body and exit 1 stitch to the side. Pull the yarn through, and then insert the needle into the next stitch along the opening of the tail. Now insert the needle back into the same place that we exited out of on the body, and again move 1 stitch over, this time slightly downwards. And then now we're going to insert the needle into the next stitch along the opening of the tail. Then again, we're going to insert the needle into the same spot that we exited out of on the body, and this time move 1 stitch over, a little bit more down and a little bit more to the side. And then once again, we're inserting the needle into the next stitch along the opening of the tail, and we're just going to keep repeating this all the way around, just following along the curve of the opening of the tail. Once you're about a quarter of the way through, you can add some extra stuffing to fill up the tail and then sew it completely up. Once you get to the same part where we started, you can go around it a second time just to make it a little bit more secure, or just sew down to the side of the tail where that curve is, and then we're going to sew the tail against the body. And this will basically hold the curve of the tail a little bit tighter to the body. So to do this, start sewing along the side of the tail and connecting it to the side of the body. We want to move from the back of the tail towards the front of the body. And we're just going to keep doing this until we reach round 6 of the tail. So let's count our rounds starting from the very tip of the tail. That's round 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're going to sew until here. Don't forget to check to make sure that your tail is lining up to how you want it to be. Once you're done, you can go ahead and weave in the yarn by hiding it inside of the plushie, or you can also add my 2 extra steps. It's the same thing as we did when we finished off the body and hid the yarn inside. Now let's sew on the tongue, and for the tongue we're going to sew it between rounds 8 and 9 on the front of the head and center to the eyes. So let's count the rounds: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And we're going to sew the tongue between these 2 rounds. I like to place a needle there just to mark it, and you do want to place it slightly off center since we are starting from the side of the tongue. I think for this one, I did place it a little bit too much to the left, so you might want to place it a little bit more towards the center than I did. And then just like the tail, we're going to sew through the body and move 1 stitch over, and then go for the tongue, and then go for the same spot that we exited out of on the body and move 1 stitch over to the side, and then back for the tongue. So just like we did for the tail. And you can go over it a few times just for extra security and to also neaten it up a little bit. And once you're ready, you can tie the 2 yarn ends together if they're in the same spot. Otherwise, just do this separately and then hide them inside of the plushie. And then cut off the ends and puff with the plushie to hide them fully inside. Now let's add the detailing. So let's start with the nostrils. Grab your number 4 worsted weight yarn and thread it through the needle. If you don't have a thinner yarn, you can also use the same size yarn as well. I just like to use thinner yarn for detailing sometimes. And we're going to embroider on the nostril onto round 7 of the head, so counting from the very top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And we're going to start at the top of round 7, so about 1 round below the eyes and slightly to the side since we're going to start with 1 nostril. So insert the needle from the top going downwards 1 stitch, so to the bottom of round 7. And then we're going to loop the yarn around to create that first nostril. So insert the needle for the same spot that we first entered from, and then move towards the other side to make the second nostril. Insert the needle 1 stitch down to the bottom of round 7, and then this time we're going to exit out the same place that we first started in. If you're happy with the placement of the nostrils, then go ahead and cut off the yarn and tie the 2 ends together and hide them inside of the plushie. If the nostrils get pulled in too much, then you can use the needle to pull out the yarn a bit more. Then cut off the extra black yarn and then puff up the plushie to hide them fully inside. Once you're done with the nostrils, the last thing that we have to do is add some belly stripes to the body. So I'm using yellow, and we're just going to embroider some stripes starting between rounds 11 and 12 of the body. So once again, let's count starting from where that magic circle is. That's our round 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So we're going to make the first belly stripe in between these 2 rounds, and I like to make my belly stripes a little bit different in size, so shorter on the top and then longer in the middle and then shorter again at the bottom. So insert the needle between rounds 11 and 12, and I like to make this one a little bit shorter, so I think around 3 stitches across, and then pull the yarn through. And to prevent having to start over for every single round, make sure that you pull quite a bit of yarn through. And then we're going to insert the needle back for the same spot that we first started in to loop the yarn around. And we're going to go to the other side again to make a second layer, just to make the stripes a little bit thicker. And then insert the needle back into the same place that we started in, and now we're going to move 1 stripe down. So I do want to make it a little bit longer this time, so I'm going to move a little bit towards the side, and then we're going to pull the yarn through and then repeat the process again, but this time just making the stripe a little bit longer. And just keep repeating this, moving 1 round down each time until you get to the very bottom. When you're on the last stripe on the bottom, I like to make this one a little bit shorter again just to give it that round oval look of the body. And then at the very end, I exit the yarn all the way back at the very top where we started, and then I just tie the 2 ends together. And just like the nostrils, just hide them inside of the plushie and cut off the extra yarn, and we are finished! Congratulations! You finished your snake! Let me know what you named it in the comments, and if you liked this tutorial, please consider leaving a like or hitting that subscribe button. It really does help me out so much, and let's continue to make content like this for you. Now, I can't end this video without giving a huge thank you to all my patrons who not just supported me during the creation of this video, but also helped to inspire so many of these patterns. You really do help make all of this possible, and I just can't tell you how grateful I am for each and every one of you. Thank you all so much again, and until next time.